My name is Trip Gorman, and in this episode of Semilla.VC, I sat down with Ignacio Masias, the co-founder and CEO of Wynwood House, a decentralized boutique hotel with locations across Latin America built to cater to travelers who aspire for the quality and consistency of a luxury hotel without the price tag. Prior to founding Wynwood House, Ignacio was a business analyst at McKinsey, and before that, an advisory and corporate finance intern at KPMG. In this episode of Semilla.VC, we discussed building and scaling a tech-empowered brick-and-mortar business in Latin America, how Wynwood House chooses building locations and prices their rooms, how COVID-19 affected Wynwood House and the hospitality industry in Latin America, and why Ignacio believes doing business across Latin America is more similar than it is different. We discussed all this and more in this episode of Semilla.VC. Okay, Ignacio, could you start by telling the audience a bit more about your work history up to and including your current role at Wynwood House?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start a little bit. I was born and raised in Lima, Peru. I went to undergrad at Cornell University, studied applied economics and management, and then I went into consulting. I worked at McKinsey for a couple of years, based in Lima, but basically based off of projects all over South America. So I worked in 5 industries in 4 different countries for 2 years. I loved it, but I always knew I wanted to do something of my own, started a company, and that's when we started Wynwood House, where I'm currently co-founder and CEO 3.5 years ago.
Amazing. So I think some people might have heard of Wynwood House. They might have stayed at Wynwood House, but I'm going to ask this intro question to kind of tell people exactly where it is on the map. So could you compare and contrast Wynwood House to all available competitors, including a high-end hotel, low-end hotel, Sonder, Airbnb, Friend's House? Tell us a little bit more about where Wynwood House sits in that matrix.
Perfect. And for some, I'll give a brief intro. So Wynwood House is a network of fully furnished and flexible stays, apartments you can rent from 1 night to a year. Currently, we are operating in Peru, Colombia, Mexico, and Panama. And the objective is to be able to maintain the essence of traveling like you're visiting a friend in fully furnished, authentic apartments and villas, but with standardizing level of quality, service, and amenities throughout the region and soon the world. So right now, we position ourselves, we're targeting modern young travelers, usually between 25, 35-year-olds, and people who are staying for longer stays, digital nomads. And we're usually priced at around 50% of the price that you would get in a comparable hotel in the same area. So we're really looking for those travelers who are trying to maximize what they get out of the price and yeah, growing fast.
Amazing. Could you tell us a little bit more about the neighborhoods that Wynwoods are located in? And then if you look at the website, there's like certain amenities that you guys offer that are standardized. Could you tell us a little bit more about those as well?
Yeah, of course. So I would say the main filter when we're choosing and deciding what Wynwood houses join our portfolio, the first one is location. So we only operate in the main areas of each city. So for example, in Mexico City, we're in Condesa, Roma, Polanco. In Lima, we're in Barranco, Miraflores, San Isidro. In Bogota, we're around Parque 93, Parque Virrey. So the location, we're always looking for places where we would personally recommend our friends to go and stay. And it's usually where it's more friendly for tourists, where you have a lot more restaurants, nightlife, and activities going on.
And then tell us a little bit more about those amenities that are standardized across all the locations.
Yeah, of course. So we have a different couple of sets. So the first one is basic amenities that you get when you arrive at the apartment. So that includes, the typical shampoos, conditioners, all that we usually work with local producers. Then when you get into the apartment, you get a couple of, business traveler perks, the pens, you get the notepads, you get a couple of night, how do you call them? The not night goggles.
Yeah, like the eye shades, yeah.
Exactly, the eye shades. And then we basically add a couple of amenities add-ons. So if you want the taxi to the airport, you can add it on your reservation. If you want to fill your fridge pack when you get there, and basically the groceries, bottle of wine, beer, whatever you want for your stay is already waiting for you inside the apartment. If you want to book a massage, you can also do that previously. And then we've added a concept that we're piloting. We have it in Lima and Mexico City. That's Casa Wynwood. So what we saw, and this was actually one of the main concepts that we had when we started, is that an apartment works great if you're traveling. You get bigger apartments, much bigger than a hotel room at a more affordable price. But a lot of times, if the building doesn't have amenities, you don't have those extra perks that a hotel usually gives you. So we're adding a clubhouse, a concept house in each city, where you have access to a co-working, a gym. In some of them, we're having a rooftop bar, restaurant, and so you can be able to meet people and interesting locals, internationals, whenever you fly and experience and travel with Wynwood.
Amazing. So you mentioned Colombia, Mexico, Peru, Panama. Where are you guys going next? Where are going to be those? You have the Wynwood houses, the Casa Wynwoods in Mexico and Peru. Where are the next one's going to be a couple of years from now? Where will people be able to stay?
So we're actually looking at the first Casa Wynwood in Colombia. We still don't know the exact location yet. We're finalizing some details, so we'll be announcing that one soon. And we also have a Casa Wynwood in the works in Panama. So I would say in the next 12 months, the plan is to have a Casa Wynwood in each of the countries where we operate. And this year, we're actually opening a couple of new countries. We already have our first building in Madrid, which we're opening up around August, September of this year. And we already have confirmed our launch to Chile and Miami as an opener into the US market. So yeah, it's exciting, growing fast, and yeah, it's really exciting time of taking Wynwood House from Latin America to the world. So definitely not an easy step.
Well, that's very exciting. You mentioned that you're staying in the Casa Wynwood in Peru right now. Tell us a little bit more about what you learned by staying at the locations and maybe some things you've learned from your past stays that you've incorporated into future iterations of the product.
I think, no, to be honest, I think it's the best way to really learn and experience your product is living through it and testing it out. I have to be extra sneaky now, so the team doesn't know that I'm the one who's staying there, so they don't do anything different. So I'm always doing mystery shopping, changing the booking name, and I'm constantly living out of Wynwood houses. I'm moving every 2-3 weeks, living out of a suitcase. So it's been great, testing out really what a digital nomad needs, wants, the level of amenities, how the customer experience is working, and in the end, there's a whole logistics component of our business that's super important. You might have a great marketing campaign, a great website, great design in the pictures, but if you get to the apartment and it's not in great shape, the concept and standardization doesn't work at all. So I think it's really helped me to see what's working, see what processes need improvement, see where we have to strengthen our team, and yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to live out of a suitcase forever, but at least for now, it's working.
Fair enough. And so how many staff members are full-time working at each of these homes, or is it just cleaning staff that come in after the stay? Could you tell us a little bit more about the human capital component of how Wynwood operates?
Yeah, well, right now we're proud. We just passed the 500 Wynwood employee mark. So that's 500 full-time employees in 4 countries. Crazy to think that we started 3.5 years ago, and it's one of the metrics that we're most proud of. In the end, when we started, there were some people, when we talked to a couple of investors and some people said, yes, you need a big team to be able to operate this at scale. And for us, it wasn't that big of a deterrent. It was more of an opportunity to be able to give employment to people, especially in Latin American cities. And yeah, so we have 500 people right now working in 4 countries. And based on our projections, we should be surpassing around 800 towards the end of the year.
Wow, that's very interesting. So you're staying at the Casa Wynwood right now. Have you interacted? Obviously, you've gotten customer feedback, maybe formally or even informally, just bumping into people while you're staying at the locations. What's something you've learned from a customer that maybe you didn't even think about iterating into the product?
That's a great question. For me, we have a couple of different customer journeys, no? So yesterday, actually, I was working out of this same co-working site, and I reserved the co-working room, but a guest walked in during my meeting and sat down, and I couldn't kick them out, you know. So I eventually started talking to them and asking for their feedback, and they said that they met Wynwood House and Casa Wynwood completely by accident. They were walking around Barranco, saw the house in Lima, loved it, walked in, booked for a couple of nights. They were American tourists that were staying in Lima for a couple of weeks, and they said that based on their experience, which was exclusively offline, which yes, it's a very small percentage of people that encounter Wynwood House through this type of just walking out around the streets and booking. But they said they would have never imagined that we managed over 1,000 properties and we're in 4 countries. So maybe adding that component. We have a lot of branded items inside the rooms and the apartments, but adding that extra component or pushing that loyalty program once they're there in physical, so they can get connected to the brand and look for us in their next trips.
I love that. I love the walk up market for Wynwood. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
And so you mentioned the loyalty component. How do you get people loyal?
Well, we've been doing a lot of work in this area recently. We saw that we're actually excited about this metric. Out of all the people that stay at Wynwood House in the past year, almost 30% of them have booked twice or more with us. And considering that we're in six cities in 4 countries, it's not easy to get recurrent customers. So at the first start, it means that people like the product and they're coming back. But right now we're about to launch our new loyalty program, which is going to be, well, very aggressive in terms of customer points and redemption and being able to book nights based on points. But also we're adding a big component of additional perks and discounts with other allied brands that with perks that people want when they travel. And this has been, you just asked me about listening to our customers and asking what they really want. We've been doing a lot of that over the past month and a half, I would say. And so discounts in allied restaurants, gyms, car rentals, massages, and a lot of different things that really help your experience. So going beyond that just nice apartment, nice hotel room, and really changing the way people travel.
So it looks like a lot of Wynwood is focused on this kind of new 25 to 35-year-old. You mentioned the digital nomad term. What percent of the market are you attacking that's like the traditional corporate traveler that is based in New York that has to come to Lima and then wants the quality of Wynwood? Is that something that you guys are attacking, just that traditional corporate business traveler?
Completely. And it wasn't something that we envisioned would be such an important customer segment when we started. Or if you would have asked the end of 2019, who was the ideal customer segment? Exactly what you just said, no? Someone that looked like us, like the founders, young people that are very budget savvy, but want to travel the world and get to know new cities. But especially since COVID hit and tourism disappeared, we had to start looking around for different customer segments. And what we've seen with corporate travel is that the frequency in which people travel has gone down, but the duration of the stays has increased. So people are traveling less often for work, but staying longer. And this particular business trip fits a lot better with staying in a fully furnished apartment instead of a hotel room. So we've been doing a big push for B2B and corporate travelers the past 6 months, I would say, closing alliances with embassies, multinationals, startups, and it has been going very, very well. I would say that it's a customer segment that we don't target necessarily with our branding and typical social media approach, but we cater through a more traditional B2B segment. But in the end, the product caters to their needs as well.
And could you talk a little bit more about how you price the traditional Wynwood houses and then the cost of Wynwoods as well? And do you look at what comparable benchmarks within each market do you price against?
Yeah. The good thing is that there's a lot of data available in all the markets that we operate. So we usually try to position ourselves within the top 10, 15% of available properties on platforms such as Airbnb, Expedia, VRBO. So we have a very robust revenue management team with dynamic prices, and it's crazy how much more revenue we're able to get than what we did at the beginning just by having these automated and semi-automated algorithms changing in based of occupancy and specific dates, seeing how many trends and just the market is moving. But so we basically, in summary, we position ourselves versus the local competitors that are renting out apartments, usually people that are leasing out their apartments in a more mom and pop shop manner. And we also position ourselves against traditional hotels. We're not competing against the super luxury small luxury hotels or five-star hotels. We're competing more against a 3, 4 star. And we usually try to get a 20-30% discount versus these hotels, comparable ones. So it's not only that you're getting a better experience, but just based on price, we're getting an advantage as well.
And so you're operating in all these different jurisdictions. I think this in juxtaposition to some of the other founders who have come on who just have like a pure SaaS solution, you're coming into different rules, different laws, unions, labor restrictions, maybe like families that own the hotels in certain jurisdictions don't want you to operate there. Like what are some of those crazy stories about having like a physical, tangible good and service that you're producing in Latin America? Have there been issues confronted there?
No, completely. And I think we've learned a lot of things along the way. The first one is that when we started, it was 4 founders, all less than 25 years old, and we would rent a couple of apartments. We designed and remodeled them completely from the start. So at the beginning, we had more scattered apartments all over, and we quickly realized that it's not sustainable to have short-term rental units in buildings where you have had the same, I don't know, neighbors that lived there for the past 50 years. No, it's not compatible, and people don't really like us in those buildings at first. So that was a quick finding, and now we're mostly, I would say, 80% of our new units are in full buildings where we control 100% of the experience, where we control from the front desk. We can control the maintenance, the cleaning of the common areas. So clearly the brand is going in that direction. In terms of crazy stories, everything, from dealing with crazy brokers, trying to get in the middle of deals, when we're just landing in a new country. We've had a couple of, especially during the pandemic, people renting the apartments and not giving the best appropriate uses for them, and having to go intervene, take them out. So it's a little bit of everything, but it's been a great experience. And I think what's worked great has been Juan Garay, my co-founder. He loves to do this initial step of going into a new market, not knowing anyone, started creating the business and renting out the first couple of units, and he's already done it in several countries. So he's usually the one who's navigating the most uncertainty when we start a new operation.
Wow. So what are you most excited about right now?
Most excited right now, I would say a couple of things. The first one is to open our Spain and European operation. We're almost there. It's been a tough task for the last couple of months, opening the legal setup, hiring the first couple of team members, and we already just saw the building, visited a couple of weeks ago, and it's in the final stages. So very excited for that. And in general, with how the company is going, I think it's a very tough time for VC, for startups. Last year we grew 4x. This year the objective is to end with over 2,000 apartments. We've maintained a double-digit healthy EBITDA for the past couple of years, besides growing fast. So to be honest, it's not easy work, but I'm very happy with how the company is going and showing the resiliency, not only of the model, but also of the team.
You mentioned the VC component. How much have you guys fundraised? And was it easy to fundraise for this sort of, semi-traditional type business, as opposed to, as I mentioned previously, like I think what some VCs might be more comfortable with is like that, SaaS recurring revenue type product?
It wasn't easy at all. So we raised a pre-seed round late 2019, and then we had 25 apartments, and the pandemic hit us. So in the end, you could say it was good and bad. The tough part was the cleaning team couldn't even show up to the apartments. We had to clean the apartments ourselves. The landlords were calling me every day trying to kill me because we hadn't paid their rent. So it was a tough time. But we quickly realized a couple of things. The first one was that the model that we had, that was the fixed rent and sublease model, wasn't scalable in the long run, because it was way too capital intensive and had super high liabilities. So that was a quick learning. But right after being able to shift our model and going to a very scalable and cash efficient one, we were ready to raise our seed round. And you can imagine, during COVID, a prop tech / hospitality company in Latin America, no VC wanted to touch the space. So that was tough. But I think it shaped the way the company and culture is set today. If that wouldn't have happened, we probably wouldn't have had that super profitability first mindset and ingrained in the company culture and the 500 people that work for Wynwood today. So the positive part was that we were able to grow with debt from the beginning in a very profitable manner. We raised our seed round in a couple of steps. So the first part of the seed round was with more traditional investors, people that were involved in real estate, a couple of large funds. And the second part of seed round, we did incorporate Fen Ventures and Imogen Capital, two VCs that led our round. So to be honest, I really like the mix and how it's evolved, because we have that VC mentality of go big. We want to really create a global brand that totally redefines the way how people travel. But we also have people on the cap table that really know the real estate business at scale, have raised several real estate funds and know that part of the business. So I think we have this good mix between more traditional and more VC focused investors.
And so what do you do?
And sorry, finishing the question, you were
Please.
saying how much we raised. We raised around 3.5 million in equity capital, and the rest around we're around 3.5 million in debt, but we're about to close a 5 million debt extension. So yeah, we're very happy because we've been able to grow a lot with a relatively small amount of equity capital raised.
Wow. So you said over 500 employees, you have all this money raised, all these different properties, all these different people who basically eat and live because of the company that you've created. What do you do? What do you do on a day-to-day basis to stay grounded, focused, and productive?
I think thankfully that hasn't been an issue so far. I think just being still very involved in the day-to-day, overseeing the operations, the metrics. There's always new things to do, problems to solve, and so I would say that the mentality of we're not even close to what we want to achieve. So we're not in the mindset of look what we've built, that this is amazing, and kind of sitting back. I think we're very much still in grind mode and not even 10% of the size of the company that we want to achieve. So yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so finally, I have to ask Peter Thiel's famous contrarian question, but with a uniquely VC twist. What important truth about Latin America do very few people agree with you on?
That's a great question. Very few people agree with me on. I think, and this is something that we've seen opening already 4 countries. Every time we go and we're talking to either potential country managers or big real estate players, everyone tends to believe that their country is super different to everything else. So that happens all the time. It's like, no, you have no idea. In Mexico, this works like this, and this. In Colombia, this won't work. So people usually believe, and I think tend to overestimate the cultural differences in different Latin American countries. And there are a lot of differences, and you have to adapt to local cultures. But in the big picture, big scheme of things, especially when we've had to open 4 countries in 3 years, there are a lot more similarities than differences. So I would say that is something that most people have disagreed with us on, and usually that's when we usually receive a lot of pushback from teams. It's like when we're trying to change or implement something different in the business model, it's like no, this won't work in Peru, for example. But in the end, thankfully for us, there's been a lot more similarities than differences.
That might be one of the best answers for the final Peter Thiel question, because everybody always says the opposite. So it's very interesting that you took that stance. So Ignacio, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Semilla.VC podcast today. I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. And well, congrats on everything you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you for watching this episode of Semilla.VC. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you view the podcast. Follow me on Twitter @GormanTrip. And be sure to check out our newsletter, Dealflow LA, which can be found by going to dealflow.la.